back to video number 9. This is all about load management. So you've had a shoulder injury, you're taking some steps now to deload that shoulder to give it some relative rest. You're considering your pain options and whether you need to take some pain medication to get that inflammation under control, to settle down any tendon swelling that might be going on. You've looked at what pain can do to your body, how you can start to compensate, your muscles can start to move differently and fire off in different patterns. We've looked at posture, whether we need to stretch or whether we should not, and now we've looked at shoulder blade stability. So we're now thinking okay, let's start to load this body once more. We've got to start to load your tissues, the rotator cuff muscles, the rotator cuff tendons, and those other muscles that load and help to move the shoulder. We've got to load those tissues up once more, because loading is essential, okay? It's essential that we load our bodies. Tissues need a certain amount of stress to function normally, so that the cells that are related to the maintenance of those muscles and tissues, tendons especially, and bone, that they're all in a nice working order. So they need load to keep things ticking over. And bones and tendons and muscles and ligaments all naturally remodel as a result of the loading that they're under. So you can move your loading window, say for example, from a poorly trained state, if we have a look at the red line here, from a poorly trained state up to a better trained state. And the body will help you do that. And one way to do that is to load your body. We all know that we can go to the gym, we can start out with a particular weight, but over a series of time, what we'll notice is the body adapts. That weight now feels lighter. We might have started out only doing 10 repetitions. Now we can do 15. We might have only started with 5 kilos. Now we can do 10. So our body is responding. Okay, so it can both respond in a positive way and it can also respond in a negative way. So if we take our bodies outside that normal window for loading, okay, our normal capacity for loading, then potentially you're going to overload your body. If we take it outside the normal capacity for use, then we're potentially going to overuse certain structures. And that's what we see potentially around the shoulder too. And I think it's very common. This overuse or overloading of the shoulder then leads to pain, because the structures around that shoulder start to change. Okay, now it's a balancing act. We want to start to load your body once more. We know that loading is essential for the health of normal tissue, but we've got to establish where you are. Okay, usually I see people gradually, slowly but surely, start to become more and more detrained. So the longer their pain goes on, the more detrained they become. So the loading that we're going to now start and put back onto that body is very light. Okay, we're after firstly muscle activation, and then we can move into the muscle strengthening. But we first start with a very light load. We're trying to get this body to respond, the right muscles to respond in the right sequences, but also gradually load up this tissue to get them to adapt. Okay, so it's a real balancing act between too much loading, which is going to set us backwards, or too little loading, which is not going to move us forward at all. So you've got to establish this just right position, okay? There'll be a loading that your body likes, and we call this just right. Excuse my back, but this is just right. Okay, like the old Goldilocks. The story of Goldilocks. I think the porridge was too hot and the other porridge was too cold, but there was always the porridge that was just right. So the loading for your tissue is going to be potentially different from mine. So you don't want to load it up too much. You don't want to load it up too little. You've got to find out what's the loading that is just right for me. Now, the way that I do this in clinic is I give everybody the lightest load possible. You might as well start out safe. So the lightest load possible so that your muscles can detect it, it can feed back to your brain, and you can start then to gradually progress. But firstly we focus on muscle activation, which we'll discuss in the next video, and then we move on to strengthening. But if we all start out at the lightest level possible, then we're not going to do ourselves any harm, and we're going to get the feel of what muscles should be feeling like when they're working, and gradually we can progress from there. Okay, now the key concept you really want to take home from today is this concept of 24 hours in a day. So if I load my body today, what am I like 24 hours later? Potentially, what am I like that night? So if I load my body, I should get a response. Now, 24 hours later, you're looking for a positive response. A little bit of muscle soreness potentially, but no aggravation of my shoulder pain. Have a couple of days rest, repeat. If I then get another positive 24-hour response and I can then repeat that in a nice series, then potentially the loading that I'm putting on my body is just right. If I get a response that's aggravation and now exacerbating my shoulder pain, then I've potentially done too much. If I go along and I'm not really making gains at all, then you'll potentially know that your loading is too light. This is a great concept, checking in on your body's response, and the 24-hour response usually is a good one. Muscle pain can actually come in 48 hours later, so you're always sort of checking. I think 24 hours is such a good insight to look at, and you'll know that you can progress forward if each 24-hour period that you're looking for a response, you get a favourable one. And as you're increasing the load, gradually but slowly, you should keep getting a nice 24-hour response. If you get one that's aggravation and you continue to get aggravation, then you need to do something about it. You either need to stop, assess the loading that you're putting on your body, assess potentially the exercises that you might be doing and whether they're effective, and if all that continues, then you'll probably want to consult your doctor. But this is important. It's a real balancing act, and everyone is slightly different, okay? And different structures are going to respond differently. We know that the tendons of the shoulder respond differently to the Achilles tendons too. Okay, so there's different loading patterns and different loading reactions in different tissues. But if you check the 24-hour response, you're always going to be hopefully within this nice safe zone, which is the just right zone, so you can keep moving forward. Okay, I hope you found that interesting and useful. Load management is the key to your success. You've got to be able to load your body up progressively and do more and build the capacity of your body and shoulder to do more. But this is the problem. This is the slippery slope. We're going to take you from a detrained state, potentially where you are now, up the slippery slope to a better trained state. This is where most people fail, in here. They're too keen to progress. They start out way too heavy. They don't check their 24-hour response and their shoulder pain continues. Okay, don't let that be you. Think smarter, take this information on board, and in the next video we're going to focus on activating and getting the key muscles and how we control those muscles to get them to respond firstly, to activate them, and then move forward with strengthening. I'll see you in the next video.